Hi folks, so today's video is going to be on Dean Castle in East Ayrshire. So just a big shout out before I start the video to East Ayrshire Council for letting me video inside the castle, and I also want to give a big shout out to the tourist guides inside the castle who were a big help. So Dean Castle was built in the 14th century and it's located in Kilmarnock, East Ayrshire, Scotland. It was a stronghold of the Boyd family who were lords of Kilmarnock for over 400 years and is situated in a 200-acre site within the Dean Castle Country Park. The castle takes its name from the Dean or Wood Valley, a common place name in Scotland. However, until the 1700s, it was called Kilmarnock Castle, owned originally by the Boyd family. It has strong historical connections with many people and famous Scottish figures such as Robert the Bruce, James III of Scotland, and the Covenanters and Bonnie Prince Charlie. So the Boyd family came into possession of the grounds of Dean Castle in 1316 when Sir Robert Boyd was rewarded the lands of Kilmarnock and West Kilbride by King Robert I for his service at the Battle of Bannockburn. Dean Castle and Country Park today is maintained by East Ayrshire Council and is free access. There are daily tours of the castle which are also free. In 1975, the 9th Lord Howard de Walden gifted the castle and estate his father's collection of arms and armour and his grandfather's collection of musical instruments to the people of Kilmarnock. The collection of arms and armour are displayed in the Great Hall of the Keep, and the musical instruments are kept on display in the solar of the Keep. The banqueting hall displays many items owned by East Ayrshire Council, including Kilmarnock edition of Robert Burns' poetry, many works of art. The private chamber of the Earl of Kilmarnock has a complete model of the castle. Legend has it that the 4th Earl of Kilmarnock was beheaded for treason in London on the 18th of August 1746. His head was carried back to Dean Castle and was stored in a large chest, which is still present in the tower. The story of the 4th Earl's head being kept in the castle has attracted many ghost hunters who have studied the castle and believe that there's a presence in the palace. Unfortunately, there's no head there today because obviously if there ever was a head brought back to the castle, it would have been buried or taken away a long time ago. So the keep was built in 1350 by Sir Robert Boyd's son, Sir Thomas Boyd. It was built mainly for defence and the walls are 2 to 3 metres thick. It has wooden windows and the original entrance is high above the ground level. There are no arrow slits in the wall of Dean Castle, something which is very rare for Scottish castles for that time period. All of the shooting was done from the battlements at the top of the current tower. The keep houses many artefacts belonging to the Boyd family and the medieval times in general, as well as various collections of arms and armour. So the armour inside this room and the weapons that you see are all real, and they were a gift to the people of Kilmarnock. The tourist guides were really helpful. They gave me a lot of interesting details about the swords. Some of them came from the Jacobites, and some of them came from the Covenanters as well. There's also various weapons and armour from various different time periods in Scottish history. So if you're ever visiting Dean Castle, you should definitely come and visit. It was really interesting, and I would really recommend you listen to the tour guides because they really give you a lot of good information about the grounds and the castle. So the first section of the palace was built in the 1300s by Sir Robert Boyd, the first Lord Boyd and his son Sir Thomas Boyd. The lands having been given to Sir Robert Boyd for his loyal service in the Scottish Wars of Independence. In 1735, an accidental fire was started in the kitchen of the palace. The fire spread onto the thatch roof and it was spread there onto the roof of the keep. The castle was a complete ruin after this and for almost 2 centuries was neglected. Although some of the buildings always remained in use, the residents of the castle, Sir William Boyd, 4th Earl of Kilmarnock, had financial problems and could not afford to repair the castle. Eventually the castle was sold by James Boyd in 1746 and the estate changed hands many times. When the 8th Lord Howard de Walden inherited the castle, he began to restore the castle to its former glory, completing the keep in 1908, and it was completed the restoration of the palace in 1946. So the present gatehouse was built between 1935 and 1936, and it was never part of the original castle. However, it was carefully copied by a real 16th century building. The dungeon itself is unique because the only way to get prisoners out of the dungeon is to take them out of a hole in the ground, which is a pretty interesting feature for this castle, and I thought it was quite cool. So there's no way of escaping out of that dungeon except from the hatch you see in this video, which I thought was really interesting. So the keep has 4 floors. The ground floor housed the cellar, which also housed the original kitchen for the Great Hall above. It also was where the bottleneck for the dungeon was. When the keep was originally built, both the kitchen and the dungeon could only be accessed from the first floor via a ladder. There was no other doors leading outside. The first floor is where the Great Hall is, and its large vaulted ceiling is situated. The Great Hall was mainly used for banquets and entertainment for lords and his guests. The guests staying at the castle would have also slept on the floor of the Great Hall, and the hall has served as a court, as the lord would act as judge, passing verdicts and sentences for crimes committed in the surrounding areas. The second floor houses the solar, a large room used as private chambers for lords and ladies. The solar could be split into 2 using a large curtain, one half for the ladies and one for the men. There are 2 fireplaces in the solar, each at each side of the room for either sex, and the solar houses a small private chapel, which was used by the lord and lady of the castle and a priest who stayed in the castle to deliver mass for the family. So at the opposite side of this room from the chapel, you would come across the ladies through a stone archway. You would come across the ladies' changing rooms and the toilets, which is quite interesting to have it all in one bit, but I suppose this is supposed to be a bedroom, originally the lord and lady's bedchamber, so it kind of makes sense to have it all in the one area, you know. So the palace was mainly designed for comfort. On the ground floor of the palace was a kitchen with a large fireplace and oven. The first floor was a banqueting hall, and above on the second hall they had bedrooms for the family. The original staircase leading up to the first floor was originally wooden, but it ran up the outside of the building, and due to weather conditions it was eventually replaced with a stone staircase that was added inside the palace. So inside this room here is where all the musical instruments are kept. This is inside the palace section of the castle, and a lot of the instruments are really, they're really interesting. But I decided to press the buttons along the other side of the room as well, and it kind of gives you an idea of what it would have sounded like when you were back in the day of, banqueting and, lords entertaining guests. So that's what it would have sounded like back in the day, which is really interesting, and I really enjoyed, checking out all the different instruments, the harps and the drums and various other instruments that were in the palace. So this is a statue here of William Wallace. So the actual castle is supposed to have hosted William Wallace at one point as well as Robert the Bruce, but a lot of that is kind of lost to time now. We don't know the whole story. We don't know the background information on it. But the tourist guide did say that there's evidence that Wallace would have stayed here at one point, along with like Robert the Bruce at a different time period. But it's just interesting. They wouldn't have stayed here at the same time. It would have been separate. But it's interesting how many interesting historical guests the castle has entertained over the years. And this is the castle from outside. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope everyone has a great day.